Today I want to talk to you guys about the 5 things that I wish I knew sooner when I graduated from restrictive dieting and these really disordered eating habits to a healthier style of eating. So this video is going to apply to you if you've ever been really rigid with your diet plans, if you did Weight Watchers, or you did some plan that just told you all the diet rules in the world, how to follow them and how to be a perfect little eater, or even if you're someone who maybe is recovered from an eating disorder or is in recovery and looking to have a healthier relationship with food. I think this video will really help you, and stick around until the end because I think the last 2 are really vital and something that I did not expect at all in my journey to a more mindful and intuitive approach to healthy eating. All right, guys, so I wondered when pregnancy brain would actually start to hit me, and it just did for today's video. So I just started contouring, and I did not blend the contour lines that were under my chin for this video. And like normal me would be like, okay, Katie, that's a sign from the universe to go back and to just reshoot the video because that's super embarrassing and no one wants to see your dumb contour lines on your face. But I feel like I recorded the video in such a way that it was like, there's some heartfelt moments and stories that I wouldn't have normally integrated into the video. And if I do it again, I feel like it's gonna not be from a genuine place, or it's just kind of feeling like it's gonna be rehearsed. So I am gonna go ahead and post the video anyway. And those of you who don't wanna look at my dumb contour lines, I totally understand. I'm sorry for fudging up the video, but I think it's such a valuable video, and if you can just look me in the eyes instead of looking at my messed up contour, then I think you'll get a lot of value out of the video. Okay, so the first thing that I wish I knew when I graduated from the world of really restrictive diets into mindful eating is that you need way more than 1,500 calories. Now, I use that because when I got off of dieting, I still had these lingering mindsets that I had to eat a certain calorie amount to be healthy. It kind of felt like I had been in the dieting land for so long that 1,200 to 1,500 calories was the norm for women, at least. And I learned that to be absolutely not true, because after I started eating better, yes, my hair, my skin, and my nails started looking better. My mental health was a lot better. My mental clarity was a lot better. I remember not being able to even think straight when I was at the peak of my dieting because I didn't have enough fuel for my brain. And that's no surprise now, but back then I was always wondering why I felt absolutely like crap. Well, afterwards, of course, I felt better when I was eating more well-rounded diet, actually eating the minimum number of calories that a person needs to survive, because disclaimer, it was more than just restrictive dieting. It was an eating disorder for me personally, but trust me when I say that dieting and disordered eating kind of tend to often go hand in hand. They don't always go hand in hand. Not everyone that's on a diet has an eating disorder, not by any means, but for me, that's what it turned into. But I really didn't let it soak in that I needed more than 1,500 calories. And I typically still had that viewpoint that even though I was lifting some of my limitations and restrictions, that I still couldn't go too far the other way or else I was being bad. A calculator that I really, really love and that I use with my own clients as well and in my Mindful Muscles Academy program is Precision Nutrition's nutrition calculator. And it's actually a free calculator that you can use on your own. But again, I like to use it with my clients so I can kind of help them interpret the data. And in Mindful Muscles Academy, I do a really in-depth walkthrough on how you can apply it, because I think sometimes doing it on your own can be a little bit tough to learn how to actually apply it. But what I love about the calculator is that you can choose your own personal goals. Maybe you're trying to gain muscle, maybe you're trying to maintain your weight, or maybe even try to gently lose weight over time in a healthy way, of course, with a moderate calorie deficit. It'll help you no matter what your goals are, find the number that's right for you. And what I really, really love is that at the end of the calculator, once you put in all your numbers, it'll show you how you can follow that plan of eating without having to calorie or macro count or anything that may dip into some obsessive and compulsive behaviors. I also find that precision nutrition typically tends to lean on the side of giving you adequate and more calories than you might think you need, versus some calculators. I feel like if you go into MyFitnessPal or something like that, it tends to do the opposite. It'll say like anyone and everyone needs 1,200 or 1,300 calories, whereas precision nutrition is geared more towards fitness lovers and people who are active. So it typically will give you a higher number. Just make sure that you aren't putting in any really unrealistic, crazy number for weight loss, because that can skew the calculator. Like, for example, I want to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. That's not a healthy amount of weight to lose in such a short period of time. So do it in a realistic way. And again, if you need any help, I do have a couple one-on-one spots for nutrition coaching. And I also have my Mindful Muscles Academy, which is always open and something you can learn more about in the description below. You can also check out my free webinar masterclass on mindful eating to get a $100 off discount on the program. Okay, so the second thing that I wish I knew, okay, hey, my cats are so loud. The second thing that I wish I knew sooner in diet recovery is that balance is health. God dang it. Balance is health. And what I mean by that is when you have something like a treat food or a dessert or something that's maybe not technically nutrient dense as a part of a well-rounded diet, that's not a negative thing against you. That's just being human. I think many people get this twisted, like I'm saying that, you should not care about your nutrition or that health doesn't matter. And intuitive and mindful eating just means don't give a crap about your health and just eat whatever the heck you want. And that's not the case. I think it's really, really important and valuable to have a healthy diet and to eat foods that are nutrient dense, like whole grains, lean proteins, nuts, seeds, legumes, fruits, veggies. All of those are things that you really need in your diet to be a healthy, well-rounded person, to have a healthy mind and body. And I think that's valuable. But I think that there is a place for eating treat foods that don't necessarily have any nutritional benefit per se. We're human. We need a balance of different foods, and food is not just nutrients. It's also developed to be cultural traditions in our family, things that bring us joy beyond just the act of giving us calories and energy, which is, what food is technically for. I remember that I used to really pride myself when I was at the peak of my disordered eating habits that I never had dessert. Like, I remember one time I hadn't had a treat food or dessert in like 3 months. And I felt like I was just I felt this like moral superiority in that eating disorder moment. That wasn't let me clarify, that wasn't a very normal thought. That was a disordered eating thought that was kind of taking over my brain and making me feel, superior for eating perfectly for 3 months in a row. But I think we get in this trap, and social media definitely doesn't help with that we think that eating perfectly is better than eating imperfectly. And let me just tell you, despite what you see on social media and these like what I eat in a day videos that look like the person that you love and follow and look up to for body goals eats perfectly, I promise you that they're showing you the highlight of their eating habits and not the truth, or not the entire truth at least. And if they are eating that perfectly all the time, then it probably is a mental challenge that they're dealing with, or disordered eating that they're dealing with. So remember that you don't understand the whole picture of someone's diet or someone's lifestyle or habits or mental health from just a video. Eat the donut, eat the chocolate, Have the dessert that you love, the pizza, the tacos, without guilt, because if you're eating healthy 80% of the time, you really don't have to worry about it. In fact, having that 20% for treat foods and quote unquote not the greatest, most healthy foods in the world is probably going to lead you to not feel like you need to binge eat later on when you randomly have an outburst when you finally see that food again. Okay, number 3 that I wish I knew way sooner is that you don't need to track your calories or your macros for that matter to be healthy. This is a really common train of thought, and it's totally understandable because a lot of the apps out there that are health and wellness focused tend to be calorie counting focused. So it totally makes sense that this is, the mindset that we have around it. But for me personally, as someone who I think have the journal to remind myself of that time, but I used to write every little thing that I ate, including like a cucumber slice or a tomato slice or a couple pieces of spinach. I used to write the food and then the calories next to it and add it all up for the day. And I remember I was having an extremely low amount of calories, lower than I want to admit, at the peak of it. I would also use things like MyFitnessPal and other stuff like that, which I think for some people can be totally healthy and not a problem. But for me, it just tended to lead me to focus on only the calories and numbers and not necessarily my actual health and the nutrient density of my diet. Personally, right now, I don't log every single day, and I don't think I ever will because I know that's not healthy for me personally. But one thing that I do if I feel like I'm off with my eating habits, or I feel like things are just, my energy's off, my workouts are off, I'm just not feeling myself, I will track for 1 to 3 days in the See How You Eat app. It's a photo food logging app. I will use that app to kind of, it's very windy outside. I'm sorry if you can hear the wind. It is like absolutely insane. Holy sh! It is so windy. I will use an app like the See How You Eat app to photo food log my foods, and it's really easy to use. Basically, it's just 6 squares where you open the app and you can just click square number 1 for breakfast, take a photo of your food, and leave it. And what I like to do with that is at the end of the 3-day period or whatever that is, I can kind of reflect on, okay, how do my snacks look? Am I skipping meals? Am I having a lot of packaged foods and not a whole lot of whole foods? Am I missing out on veggies or on protein? And I use that to kind of mindfully see what I can tweak in my diet to feel better, but I don't really obsess or stress over it. I just kind of objectively look at it. And this is actually a method that I use with my clients and in my Mindful Muscles Academy program, because I think it's such a good way to stay intentional with your eating and still stay aware when you're trying to improve your healthy habits without being obsessive about it. And this is something that I really didn't know right away when I was recovering from the diet mentality that I could do. I thought it was like kind of like all or nothing, like I had to either count calories and macros, or I was being an intuitive eater and any type of logging was wrong. I really had that dualistic, or whatever you call it, mentality where I thought one or the other was true. And now, after several years of recovery and being a dietitian as well, I've just found that, screw what other people think and what other people's philosophies are around, like if tracking of any sort is bad in mindful eating, or if I don't think even that calorie counting is bad per se. It's just what works for you. And so I guess I'm just embracing what I've found to work for me and what I've found to work for many of my clients. And I love the results I've seen with them and their relationship with food and their ability to be more mindful and intentional without just the self-judgment. The 4th thing that I wish I knew sooner, or I wish I knew in preparation for when I was going off my diet, is knowing that my hunger and fullness signals were not going to be normal right away. And this is actually a very normal thing, especially if you were on a really, really restrictive diet or you were straight up in disordered eating territory, your body is probably gonna still be in survival mode when you recover, even when you're eating a normal amount now. So I guess I had this wishful thinking that once I recovered, it was just gonna be super peachy and I would not have to worry about any of the reparations of my actions over the past couple of years of restricting my food heavily. Yes, there's definitely reparations that happen. I talk in another video about my experience with reactive hypoglycemia, something that I also didn't expect to experience in eating disorder recovery. So I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you want to watch that as well. But what I found for me personally, and I think everyone's different, so just use this and apply it to your own scenario too. But what I found was that I was always craving, and I mean like always craving, excessive amounts of dietary fat. And for that point in time, I don't think that that's necessarily like a bad thing. I think I was judging myself a little bit because of old habits die hard, but I was having like excessive amounts of peanut butter, other nut butters, avocados, stuff like that. I could have like a whole avocado. Like that's not something that I typically could fit in my stomach or even like that I would desire to have in that quantity right now. I think that was my body's way of protecting me and making sure that I was getting enough. And also it's important to note that dietary fats are what helps our body build hormones. And I had lost my period during all of that mess. So my body was probably craving that to make sure that I still was able to get a period, that I was able to be fertile in the future. Speaking of which, I'm 20 weeks pregnant, so, or 19 weeks, but whatever, same thing. It still kind of feels crazy, but yeah, like stuff like that, your body knows best. And I was craving mostly fats, but also a lot of carbs. And I remember just thinking like feeling shameful for that and just feeling like maybe this is wrong. Like that's not the normal amount of fats that I had before. Don't judge yourself for it. Remember, it's part of the process and things will level out afterwards and you will probably feel a lot more in tune with your hunger and fullness signals, with your body's needs and desires for the amounts of carbs, fat, and protein that you need in a day. And it'll start to balance out after a while, but it's not gonna happen right away. And to that, I didn't really even mention the hunger. I would say that I was really a lot more hungry and I had more of an appetite at the beginning of my recovery than I would say now. Like now I feel like I have a pretty normal appetite, sans pregnancy, which has definitely given me an extreme appetite in the second trimester, but also a normal human bodily thing. But just know that your hunger signals may be ramped up at the beginning of recovery, and your ability to sense when you're actually full may also be skewed. So you may catch yourself overeating sometimes. You may even catch yourself ignoring hunger signals because of your disordered eating habits or dieting habits in the past. Because, think of how often they teach you to just drink a glass of water when you're feeling hungry. And if you think you're hungry, go on a walk first before you eat. Jesus Christ, we don't think that about peeing. We just go pee when we have to pee. But with food, it has to be this morally horrible thing to be hungry. So I highly recommend working with a registered dietitian like myself if you are struggling with kind of determining your hunger and fullness cues. I'm also planning on making a mini course on this topic, rediscovering your hunger and fullness signals and learning how to be a mindful eater again, rediscovering how to be a mindful eater, because I think we're all mindful eaters. I think we're all mindful eaters at heart, but yeah, just be patient with yourself. Make sure you're having enough food and the right quantities of food and listen to your body as much as possible and know that your hunger and fullness signals will be imperfect and then over time they will get better and level out. And number 5 that I wish I knew sooner in diet recovery is that if you were using dieting as a coping mechanism, and you may not even realize that you have been, but if you think deeply on it, if you've been using dieting as a way to cope or numb or forget about the stressors other stressors of life, then you will likely project somewhere else if you don't get a handle on it. So let me explain that a little further, because that's not really an easy one to put in one sentence. So here's an example, and also more of what I mean by that. So a lot of times dieting can be a way to distract yourself from things. So maybe you have a stressful relationship. I know when I was in the peak of my eating disorder, I don't want to blame my eating disorder on anyone else or project my own struggles on anyone else, but I know that I was in a very abusive relationship. And I remember one day this individual called me fat, and it really, really triggered me. They would compare me to other women, other girls that I knew, and asked like why I couldn't have a body like that. And so that was one of the triggers that led me down the path of disordered eating, because I felt like I wanted to have control over my body. I wanted to have control over how this person perceived me, and thought that if I did that, that they would love me more. And two, I also wanted a distraction from all the stress and turmoil that was going on in my relationship. So I was really, really determined to, not like outwardly, but subconsciously determined to bottle it up and like keep it all in, and just have something that I had control over, have something that was gonna numb me from the pain that I was feeling. That's maybe a more extreme example on the spectrum, but you can also just want a distraction from, maybe you're just bored of your life. Maybe you're bored of your job and you just need a distraction. So counting calories all day is something that helps you cope. Or maybe you feel a lot of anxiety or depression, and having something like obsessing over your food helps keep you occupied so you feel less depressed in the moment. Like someone would with cigarettes or alcohol, we numb with other things like food. And so I think if you aren't careful, and if you don't see a therapist to help you work through some of these challenges, you can project elsewhere. So for me personally, when I got out of my disordered eating habits, that was the same time that I kind of quit doing, let's just say, negative, bad things that teenagers sometimes do. And I kind of quit everything cold turkey. I was like, okay, I'm done with disordered eating and harming my body. I'm done with any substances that may numb me further. And I didn't drink alcohol that much, so I didn't really have to worry about that. But as I recovered, and once I started like making money as an adult, I found myself like shopping a ton. And it was not just healthy shopping. It was kind of like, it was never like I racked up debt or anything like that, thankfully, with shopping, but it was definitely a numbing mechanism. And it was most likely because of some untreated feelings that I had that I was projecting onto something else now that I no longer had dieting. So this is something that you can definitely talk through, again, with a therapist. I had a great therapist a couple years back that really helped me kind of walk through why I was shopping and what led to me wanting to kind of impulsively shop for random things and have a billion packages show up during the week. And that's what I would recommend. This would go beyond the scope of practice of a dietitian. Sometimes having a multidisciplinary team, as expensive and frustrating as it can be, because I know all of us are very busy people and limited on time, it's really, really helpful to have someone to make sure that once you heal from the dieting and restrictive mentality and the numbing that comes with that you don't hop on board to something else like alcohol or cigarettes or shopping or any other type of addiction that you can think of. Okay, well, I hope that you learned a thing or two from this video. And if anything resonates with you, I would really love to hear it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your own thoughts as well, your own stories, and what you've experienced maybe in your own dieting recovery, or if you're someone who's just thinking about switching from dieting to a more mindful approach, what are you struggling with the most? I'd love to make a follow-up video on that to answer all your questions. And also, if you want to learn more about mindful eating, I highly encourage you to check out my mindful eating masterclass. It's in the description below and it's totally free. It'll get sent straight to your inbox once you sign up, and you can spend 40 minutes learning the basics of mindful eating with me, including getting a $100 off coupon for my mindful eating program that I think you're gonna love if you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you to the moon and back, and thank you so much for spending time with me here on YouTube. I really appreciate it. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you enjoyed this video. And if you want to continue hanging out with me here on the channel, then click or tap the screen to head on over to the next video. Bye guys.